Let me ask you something. Have you ever read a full page of a textbook, got to the bottom, and thought, I have absolutely no idea what I just read? Or maybe you finished a chapter the night before an exam, felt like you'd covered it, and then couldn't recall much of anything when it actually mattered. Here's what I want you to understand. That is not a concentration problem. It is not a memory problem. It is not an intelligence problem. It is a reading problem. And more specifically, it's a problem with step 3, because there are 3 steps to reading. Most people were only ever taught 2 of them. And the third one? It's the only one that determines whether reading actually produces knowledge. Before we get into the steps, let's be clear on what reading is meant to accomplish. Words are carriers. They exist to transport ideas, experiences, concepts from the mind of the writer into the mind of the reader. The measure of whether reading has worked is not whether you saw the words and sounded them out. It's whether the concept those words were carrying has actually been transferred into your understanding. When a teacher tests you on a chapter, they're not asking, did you see these words? They're asking, do you understand what these words were communicating? That distinction seems obvious when I say it like that. But most students read in a way that's optimized for the first question, not the second, and that gap is where almost all the forgetting happens. So let's go through the full reading process, all 3 steps. Step 1. See the words. Your eyes process the symbols on the page. This is necessary, but it's entirely passive. Nothing has been encoded yet. This is where reading starts. It is not where understanding happens. Step 2. Say the words. Your inner voice sounds them out. Most readers do this automatically, even silently. It's the phonetic layer, the thing we learned first. This engages auditory processing, which is useful for decoding unfamiliar words. But here's the problem. Auditory memory is transient. Sound fades, and without the next step, most of what you read fades with it. Step 3. Create a picture or a video. This is the step almost no one was explicitly taught. This is where the reader constructs a vivid internal image, a mental film of what the words describe. You fill in the color, the movement, the scene, the detail. You build something from the words. And this is where meaning is actually made. Visual memory is more durable, more richly connected, and more reliably retrievable, especially under exam pressure, than auditory processing alone. Steps 1 and 2 are passive. Step 3 is active, and it's the one that creates lasting knowledge. Let me make this really concrete. Take this sentence. The cat jumped through the window. If you read that at steps 1 and 2 only, seeing the words, sounding them out, you get a vague impression. A cat. A window. But now actually picture it. What kind of cat? Tabby. Black. A kitten. Which window? Bedroom. Kitchen. Ground floor. A shop front. Is the cat jumping in or out? Is it graceful or is it panicking? What time of day is it? The sentence doesn't specify any of that. But a reader engaging step 3 fills it all in, automatically. And in doing so, they construct a specific, vivid, internally held scene. That scene is what gets remembered. The words themselves are gone the moment your eyes move on. The image persists. Words are like paint. They paint a picture in the reader's mind. If no picture gets painted, no meaning gets made, and nothing gets remembered. Here's the science behind why this matters. The brain's memory systems are not equally suited to all types of input. Information processed primarily through the auditory channel, the inner voice, is transient. It lives in working memory for a short period and then it fades, unless it's reinforced, connected to something meaningful, or encoded in a more durable form. Visual memory, the kind created when you build a genuine internal image, is stored differently. It's more durable, more richly connected to other things you know, more reliably retrievable when you're under pressure. This is why vivid experiences are remembered long after the verbal description of them is gone. The image anchors the memory in a way that words alone can't. Passive reading processes information in the least durable form available. It builds recognition, the sense that something looks familiar when you see it again. But recognition is not recall. A student who recognizes a correct answer in multiple choice is not the same as a student who can produce that answer independently under exam conditions. Conceptualization builds recall. Passive reading builds only recognition. There's one specific situation where step 3 fails, and it's incredibly useful to know about. It fails when you encounter a word you don't truly understand. Try this. The phlegmatic feline jumped through the window. If you don't know what phlegmatic means, or if feline doesn't immediately call up a clear image, you can't form a complete mental picture of that sentence. The image has a gap in it. And a picture with gaps is a picture that won't hold. This is actually extremely useful diagnostic information. When a student says, "I read it, but I don't really understand it," the cause is almost always a word. One or several words that were seen and sounded out, but whose meaning was never actually carried across. The LAS understanding strategy is designed to fix exactly this. When the picture won't form, you stop, find the word, resolve it genuinely, and then return to the text with a complete image available to build. The two strategies work together as a complete reading system. Conceptualization is the active reading method. The understanding strategy is what you use when conceptualization hits a wall. And here's something that a lot of students find really surprising. This strategy isn't just for reading. The same 3-step process applies when you're listening to a teacher explain something, when you're in a lecture, when you're following a spoken explanation of any kind. A student who listens at step 2 only, hearing the words, following the sounds, processes the content auditorily and retains very little of it. A student who simultaneously builds mental pictures of what is being described, constructing a visual model of the concept as they hear it, encodes it far more durably, and understands it at a much deeper level. When the picture isn't clear, that student also knows exactly what to ask about, the specific element of the explanation that didn't form a complete image. That transforms the experience of being confused from a general, "I don't get it," into a specific, addressable question, which is a considerably more useful place to be. One more thing worth mentioning, because it surprises people. One of the most consistent side effects of learning to read with step 3 engaged is improved concentration. The mind naturally tends toward imagery. It wants to picture things, construct scenes, follow narratives. When reading stays at step 2, the mind and the text are in competition. The text demands attention. The mind wants to drift toward images. The result is the familiar experience of reading to the bottom of a page and realizing nothing was absorbed. When reading actively engages step 3, the mind is doing what it naturally wants to do, building images, but doing so in service of the text rather than in competition with it. Concentration stops being an act of willpower. It becomes an automatic consequence of reading working as it should. Here's the key takeaway from everything we've covered today. The reading and conceptualization strategy doesn't require more time. It requires a shift in what happens during the time already spent. Same words, same text, same desk. But with step 3 actively engaged, the result is genuine comprehension and durable memory, rather than surface familiarity that disappears by the next morning. The full strategy, including step-by-step exercises that turn active conceptualization from a conscious effort into an automatic habit, is free to access in the Learning Strategies section of the LAS app. Go try it, and share this with a student you know who reads everything and remembers nothing. Download the Learning Anything Strategies app from the Apple or Google stores. I'll see you in the next one.